Now I will give the floor to Professor Vera Golan-Debas. She is Honorary Professor of the International Law at the Graduate Institute of International and Development Studies in Geneva. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me begin with the question of responsibility under international law. By responsibility, I mean, of course, general responsibility. In other words, responsibility to carry out one's obligations under international law. But I will also refer to state responsibility. In other words, responsibility in a much stricter sense, which is the legal consequences for a state that arises under international law in case of a wrongful act, in case a state breaches its obligations under international law. Now, what is the responsibility, first of all, of Iraq, where, of course, Camp Ashraf is located? And so, in fact, Iraq is responsible not only under humanitarian law, and I want to just mention that their protected status. Now, under human rights law, of course, expulsion of aliens is prohibited, except under certain very stringent conditions. Mass expulsion, of course, is prohibited. Iraq itself has certain obligations which it should respect under human rights law, and incurs, of course, responsibility under international law for all acts in breach of these obligations, not only under the treaties it has adhered to, but under customary international law. And Iraq's act vis-à-vis Camp Ashraf has been qualified from certain sources as a serious breach by a state of an obligation arising under a peremptory norm of international law. Their violation is the concern of the entire community of states, and not only the states that have been subjectively involved in their breach or victims of that breach. So, a serious breach by a state of an obligation arising under a peremptory norm involving a gross or systematic failure by the responsible state to fulfill the obligation. Of course, what has happened in Camp Ashraf is to be qualified at some point by independent and neutral observers. But we can, I think, prima facie consider that they are serious breaches. So I will, in fact, stop here. It's simply, once again, to underline that the status of Camp Ashraf residents is undoubtedly an international one. They are entitled, therefore, to protection of their rights both under Iraqi law and under international law. The policies of Iraq involve serious breaches of international law and incur its state responsibility. And the fate of Camp Ashraf residents is a matter of international community concern, involving individual states as well as the organs of the United Nations, including the Security Council. Thank you very much.